Welcome to the webinar today. We're excited to have you. My name is Spencer Hicken. I'm a senior success coach here at Bill Good Marketing. I've been here for just over 13 years, worked with hundreds of different offices, helping advisors implement our system and build up their teams, define roles, create succession plans, and everything needed to reach that next level. So I'm lucky enough to work with a lot of awesome people who do amazing things to help their clients. And one of those people is joining me today. It's Rob Messett. So Rob, thank you for taking the time to join me today for this webinar.
Glad to be here, Spencer.
Awesome. A little bit about Rob. Rob has been in the industry since 1997. While he was going through college, he worked for a financial planning firm where he mentored under Ken Kendall and John Bledsoe. He earned his licenses, and in 2001, he founded Messett Financial. Okay. Outside of the office, in the office first, Rob really likes educating his clients, helping people and organizations learn more about finance and helping his clients reach those financial goals that they set for themselves. So outside the office, Rob loves spending time with his family, trail running, mountain biking, skiing, playing darts, backpacking, shooting pool, reading books, all the fun stuff. So, and Rob, thanks for joining. I really look forward to our conversation today.
I'm glad to be here.
For those of you on the webinar that aren't super familiar with the Bill Good system, the Bill Good marketing system is huge. Well, first of all, you'll see a tiny portion of it today as me and Rob talk, but we are here to help advisors double production or work half as much. Okay, we're all about CRM, did that database organization, making sure you have that in place, working through client marketing, of course, prospecting, and practice management. We look at the team and time. Okay. And then we go into branding. We help offices with all aspects of the business and getting to that double or having the systems in place to work half as much while maintaining what you have. Okay. So again, as me and Rob talk, you're going to get kind of a preview of the full system. All right. So before we really get into it, a little bit of housekeeping. Okay. Ask questions, please. As we talk through this, we are here for you. Let us know what questions you have. We will get those answered as we go along. Now, Rob is also one of our speakers at AdvisorCon that's coming up in January. He's going to be talking about how he brought in all this growth over the years. And primarily, that was from referrals. A lot of it came from there. But during AdvisorCon, he'll share with you all the small gestures and things that he does that turns his clients into raving fans. And Rob's clients love him. And you'll see some of why as we talk about the kind of the back end processes today. But all those raving fans brought in over 32 million in new assets last year. And this year, Rob's on pace to bring in 50 million. So that growth is just continuing as he moves forward. So he'll be joining a lot of other speakers, as you can see here, at AdvisorCon, that will come in and share everything that they do to bring in new money and really have it run smoothly for them in their office. Okay, so there is still time to get tickets for this. It is limited, so please, if you'd like to come in and learn all these secrets, go learn more about AdvisorCon. Give us a call. You can visit the link that we just posted in chat. Okay, learn more about it and get your tickets. Okay. Now, Rob, you were at AdvisorCon last year. What was your experience? What did you take from that?
A lot of great ideas that we're able to implement into the practice to help us do things a little bit better. Some really unique marketing ideas. Essentially, you have You have a slew of different advisors up there. Most of them are huge producers, much larger producers than I am at this stage, and they're sharing within their offices how they run it, and giving different ideas in order to not just grow the business but manage the business. So a lot of great ideas from a marketing perspective. Also, some good ideas as far as writing. Bill did a little talk on utilizing some of the AI tools out there to assist with your writing. And then, of course, the networking is great. Just the one-on-one time with the people sitting next to you. We've all been in rooms before where you're having a wholesaler speak and there's 30 people in the room, but there's really only 3 people in the room that really do any business. This is a room where the people around you are all heavy hitters, and you can learn a lot from them. So it was a great experience.
Mhm. Oh, definitely. And that's probably one of the things that I hear most often after AdvisorCon from everyone that attended is that the networking side of it was actually networking. Um, and people are pretty open to it. Like everyone's there to communicate with each other and kind of take those tips and tricks that everybody has and so they can take them home. So now, obviously, you are one of the speakers at this upcoming AdvisorCon. Is there something that you are looking forward to with AdvisorCon coming up here in just a couple short months?
Just really gaining feedback and learning what other people are doing that's unique and maybe I haven't seen before, and taking away a few things that we can come back and implement within the practice.
Mhm. Definitely. And the sandy beach of Puerto Rico isn't going to hurt either, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Perfect. All right. So again, we've posted the link in there in chat. Go learn more about AdvisorCon. You can see the agenda, what everyone's going to be talking about. It's going to be a great time, well worth it. Now, those of you that have attended our webinars before, you know about our world-renowned goodie bags that we give out at the end of these webinars. If you stay through to the end of the webinar, we will give you, there'll be a QR code and a link that you can go to take a short survey. It's a few questions. It doesn't take much time at all. But if you do, you will get the pieces of the goodie bag. Today's goodie bag includes a couple different things for you. It'll have a copy of Rob's onboarding checklist. And you'll see that actually today here in the presentation. We'll be talking about it. It'll also include a copy of the client onboarding questionnaire. And this is a cool thing. Obviously, it's got a lot of good stuff in it. But one of the things that I really love about it and that Rob built out, it's a fillable PDF, which everyone has their questionnaire. I have seen very few that have taken the time to make it that PDF document that can be sent out easily, filled out, and done. So really cool things. Again, if you stay to the end, you'll have the link to go take that survey for us. We really appreciate any input and feedback that we get through that, and you will get these two things in return. So all that said, let's jump into this. All right. I know a lot of people, as you went through the promo, you probably saw some of the numbers, and that was kind of a big pull to get you here. Okay. Let's talk about it for a minute. Here's a graph of the last few years of Rob's growth. Rob came on to the Bill Good Marketing System back in 2019. At that point, you can see we was about at the 93 million mark. Okay, near the end of 2019. What I want to look at for a minute and have you tell us about, Rob, is that time from 2020, especially to 2021, but even into 2022 a little bit during COVID. You went from 112 up to 155 million in assets during that time. Tell me a bit about that growth and what your experience going through COVID, and especially that first year. How was that for you?
And COVID was a very strange but busy time. It was great for business. It did a couple different things. One, because of utilizing the system and the drip marketing where we're sending the letters monthly to the clients and we're in front of them a lot, and the proactive marketing, when people were freaking out about what was going on, I think you had a lot more conversations where it was my financial guy is saying this or whatever. And it was the impetus for more people getting referred over to us. I probably had 5 or 6 where they contacted me, and they did the typical. A lot of us get every year in early January. Sometimes you'll get a referral or two, and it's kind of a New Year's resolution deal where people will say they've had your number for several years. Maybe it's somebody's brother or sister. But with COVID, this happened a lot where people were scared, and one of the things they realized is when they call that 800 number for Fidelity, they really weren't giving them, any information to make them feel better. So COVID was good for business in the sense that it helped spur a lot of additional referrals. And then, as many of us have figured out too, it also trained a certain segment of society on technology very quickly, because if they wanted to see their grandkids, they needed to learn how to use Zoom. So, and it surprised me how much that's changed everything over time. There'll be, I would say, if I run 20 meetings in a week that are client or prospect facing, I would say now probably 15 of them are virtual. And that's by their choice. Some of these people may only live 10 or 15 minutes away and they're retired. And I know they like me because when they see me, they hug me and tell me how much they appreciate me. But at the same time, they find it's easier and just more convenient sometimes to do it virtually. So that was really good for business in particular.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things I really loved about the advisors that took advantage of COVID is something I've talked to my other advisors about too, is kind of the industry standard for service is set pretty low. I mean, the biggest complaint in the industry has been I don't hear from my advisor. And even through COVID, it was still the biggest complaint. A lot of people didn't hear from their advisors through lockdown, so that service bar is set super low. And then Rob, we advisors like you see that and have the processes and things in place to show people where that bar should be set. They should be getting education. They should be hearing from their advisor to explain what's going on, because people outside the industry really don't have any idea, and except for what they're hearing from media, and that's not what we want them going with.
Not at all. Yeah, I think the Silicon Valley Bank situation was another good example of that, where people were scared about what might be happening, especially those that are old enough to remember 2008, well, and getting something out quickly. And when you do that, when there's some type of major event, you get something out quickly, it starts to train the clients to not worry about going other places to look for information. They really rely on you for it, and it just makes managing the book a lot easier also.
100%, absolutely. So, and that went through COVID, obviously some massive growth there. And then jump forward a couple more years between 2023 and 2024, from 185 to 275. Let's talk through that. The last year and a half, that's a huge jump up. How's that been to go through? Just especially from the team's point of view, doing all the back end and staying on top of those new clients that are coming in.
Absolutely. And the title of this, All Gain, No Pain, it might be just a little bit of a stretch. There was definitely some pain along with that, but I think it's just a combination of things. One being, we did evaluation a couple years ago. We're in the process of doing another one now, but a couple years ago when we did it, our average age was 49. So, now just because of the average age of our client book, we're getting more and more of those large rollovers. We're more commonly getting referred into the parents that are in their 70s and 80s and have larger amounts of wealth. So it's getting a lot of additional assets from existing households And then of course the referral flow continuing. We generally average about 3 to 4 referrals a month. And we have a pretty high close ratio on those, and it's pretty consistent on that referral flow. And as we all know too, there's been some nice market growth here over the last couple of years, which has certainly helped out with the AUM also. Well, we track, and we'll get in a little bit later to like ongoing tracking and things like that, but we track net new AUM. That's really what I care about because it's, something we can control.
Oh, absolutely. And I love one of the things that as we've been talking over the last few years, one of the things I've always noticed with you is the consistency. And we're seeing more and more growth over the years, but when we look at the number of new households coming in, most years it's been fairly similar. It's kind of within that range. I think we've seen that growth of the kind of the asset level of the new households coming in, but you can kind of depend on those few referrals every month. We get new money from clients pretty regularly, and that's been something that's been I've noticed with you for the last 2-3 years that we've been working together.
Absolutely. And the key is really having the right team around you to be able to handle the increased volume and process it and service it properly. And we've got a great team we've put together over the last few years.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's go back to 2019, kind of when everything started up with the Bill Good Marketing System. What did your team look like back then?
Yeah, so back then it was essentially Judy, who's my mom. She started working with me a few years after I went off on my own. So she was, for the people that are familiar with Bill Good, she essentially was doing everything. And then in addition to her as a full-time service assistant, we would have somebody else 10 or 15 hours a week just to help out with some of the basic administrative duties. And then when we bought the Bill Good system, we hired a full-time person whose job was to be the computer operator, do all the mailings, manage the database, as well as assist Judy. And we figured out pretty quickly that we needed more. At the time, I was attempting to be the sales assistant and the advisor, which is very difficult to do. And I think when you look at the AUM chart, part of the reason you see it jump so much is because as we brought on additional personnel, where those client no contact calls were religiously being made the way they should be. And really a lot of the background is, for people not familiar with Bill Good Marketing, the whole idea is that the advisor's job is to meet with interested and qualified clients and prospects. And that's really it. And if you have the right team around you, you can have all the prep done prior to meetings for you and confirmations, and then everything done for you after the meetings also, and just get a lot more done or be a lot more efficient.
Absolutely. And the team really becomes one of the most vital pieces of getting not just growth, because I've dealt with advisors that are one-man shows. You can still grow, but getting to these levels of bringing in 30, 40, 50 million dollars a year and new assets and that kind of growth, you really need a team behind you, and someone that, like you said, that can handle all of the pre and post appointment stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. And I don't know many advisors I don't know any advisors that came into the business to do paperwork. No one likes that part. So you came in to help people, to meet with people, and you have that skill set. So use it. Put your focus in that area. Now going back, the other piece of this, you've got the team. You had some of the processes to handle things. Back in 2019, what processes would you say you had really in place?
There's a process for keeping up with workflow, but that process was a process that made a lot of sense and worked well when you really just had one person doing it. We called it the cart, and it was a cart with files in it. And each file would have different business that was in process inside of there. And then on a weekly basis, Judy would go through the cart and make sure all the follow up was being done. And there were binders on workflow on exactly how to do different types of business. You could just pull out the binder and figure out how to do it. Once again, that was a great system when it's one person. But as the office starts to get larger, that doesn't really work well anymore.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about, as we added to the team, what did you start seeing? When you started bringing on that next, let's say that the next two people that
Mhm.
helped out on that service side. Um, you know, it helped in some ways and created some you know speed bumps in other ways. What happened is we started adding in new team members. What adjustments did you notice right off the bat with that?
I mean, from my perspective, the adjustment would just be that there were fewer things that I needed to do directly. And I mean, this is a more recent deal, but about a year and a half ago, I gave up my email in the sense that somebody else monitors all my email for me. They flag things that need to be addressed. And sometimes I'll be so busy, it's hard to pay attention to email, but they'll grab me between meetings and say, Rob, you really need to take a look at this, or they'll delegate it out to other people on the team to take care of. The other thing too that happens, and Bill Good used to argue back in the old business card days, that you have your service assistant's contact information on the business card, and that you try to get the clients to interact directly with them. And that's something that just kind of naturally happens over time, in the sense that when the clients realize they come to me for something and then it's somebody else in the office that helps them with that issue, the next time, in most situations, they just go directly to that other person.
Oh, definitely. And then as the team has expanded, it's just a little bit of training at that point, uh, to let clients know there's more people here to help. It's still not you. Leave Rob alone. As far as service goes, he's useless. Yeah, let's talk to the rest of the team and get their help to keep things running, so that your focus is again sitting down in front of interested, qualified people.
Exactly.
And we got a great question that came in. How did your clients respond as you added new team members on? Did they feel the same, that they were getting the same level of attention as before? Or how did that work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was a concern early on, but it's only been positive. I'll consistently get positive feedback from the clients about the team. I lost, going off on a tangent, back in probably 2017 or 2018, I lost a good client to Merrill, and I realized he had fallen through the cracks. I hadn't met with him in a year and a half. Somehow a review meeting got rescheduled and was never set up. But at the time, I remember that guy telling me how much he really liked the Merrill team that this other advisor had. And since, we've been able to get that client back, by the way. But I think the team is very important. I mean, really, all a company is a group of individuals, and some of the older clients in particular like to talk a little bit, and some of the team members have a little bit more time for that. So I think they enjoy it. I've got another advisor that I brought in. His name's Nick, and he's just a rock star. But this similar thing on some of the clients that need a little bit more attention, that want to talk about things going on. They've learned over time that he's a little bit more accessible than I am. And in a lot of situations, they're bypassing me and having conversations with him. And it doesn't seem to be an issue.
Absolutely. And I'll just add on to that, where when I've seen advisors bring on new team, okay, because a lot of people that come onto the Bill Good system initially, we've got a pretty decent group that come on with maybe one or two team members, and over the course of 2, 3, 4 years, we do need to grow the team, and I think a lot of it has to do with the process you take with new team members. Rob, you mentioned one is every time a client calls and talks to the advisor, they end up dealing with another team member. Hey, so and so is going to help you with that. Let me have them handle that. And training your clients that way, getting introduction letters out, which we have several different kinds for you. Getting those introduction letters out, not just to say, hey, here's Spencer, he's on our team now, here you go. But it's here's what Spencer's role is. Here's how he's going to be helping you as you move forward. And if you get that where it's always a positive, and here's the role, here's how this is going to work, you end up your clients see the positive effect that has on not just your business, but on what they start receiving from you. Because now everybody on the team has a little bit more time to focus on providing more. So that's how we see that team concept coming into play, and how it can be pushed as that positive for all of your clients. Now, will that work for 100% of your clients all the time? No, but I'd say pretty easily 99% of the time, absolutely. Yeah. So
I think succession's a big deal for a lot of people too. I mean, I like to go backpacking and do some things that sometimes some people might consider a little dangerous. So when I'm telling my clients that I'm about to go on this trip or whatever, I would occasionally have people kind of freak out on, well, what am I going to do if something happens to you? So, having a buy sell set up and communicating with the clients, and it's easy now because I have that other advisor I brought in, so they can kind of see that that's already set up in place. But I think that's important. And now we're spending time kind of communicating that the idea longer term is to have a firm that's going to far outlive me. And we want to work with not just you, but your kids and ultimately your grandkids and so on and so forth. Shortly after I got out of college, I interviewed with a firm out of Austin, Texas. And the firm originally had been started in the 1920s, and it was a guy started it, another guy took it over, and then it was the son. But they had families they had dealt with since the late 20s and early 30s, some very wealthy families. But it was very powerful on how strong those relationships were, and it's because they were a multi-generational firm.
absolutely. So we're getting a few questions coming in. That let's talk about the team and how it looks now. Starting with how many people are on your team?
Yeah, it's, whenever you look at the team itself, if you include myself, then we would have 6 full-time people. And then my mom still handles the payroll, so she's still around, but just a couple, we have her very part-time. And then we've just recently started using an intern to help out with some of the administrative tasks. And then kind of for the intern, their carrot is they get to sit through some of the review meetings and some of the planning meetings to learn a little bit about the business. So, and on the team itself, we call the person that kind of sits up front the client experience manager. They're the ones that are in charge of the first impression that the clients get. And they also serve as kind of my executive assistant. That's the one that Veronica, who's very good, who keeps track of my emails and does a lot of the scheduling. We recently brought in we're calling her director of operations right now, but it's essentially a COO. She's licensed. She's been in the business for a while and in other practices similar to ours. And her job is to really manage the team. We've got 2 service assistants that are very good. They're both named Laura, so it's a little confusing at times. And they both have some great strengths, and they've been with us for several years now.
And then obviously you mentioned Nick before, is that other advisor that we brought on. Seems like a really long time ago, but Really wasn't.
Yeah, just a few years, but and even Nick, I feel a little bad. See, when I was in college, I was working for a planner that used the Bill Good system. So I started off as the computer operator, the one doing the mailings, and then I became the sales assistant doing the no contact calls and running seminars and doing all those things. So I've done everything kind of from the ground up. And then of course I'd spend my Sundays doing paperwork, the dreaded paperwork that thankfully I don't have to do anymore. But it's really key having the right people, and like Nick right now is really serving the role as a financial advisor because there's certain clients he's taking lead on, but he's also acting as a paraplanner because if people want projections and things, I'm not really doing them, I'm giving them to him and having him do it. And then he's also providing the role as like a sales assistant where he's doing the no contact calls. So as we get the number of clients or the number of clients that he's lead on to be a larger number, our next hire would be a paraplanner slash service assistant.
Absolutely. Um, well, and I guess real quick, sorry, I should have gotten this question a little earlier. What's your total client households at right now?
A lot. Yeah, this is about 410 households. So then there's about 50 of those households where Nick's officially lead on, and then there's about 360 where I'm lead on. Most of the new households coming in are going to Nick. And then if it's a large client, if it's 3 million or more, we work it together. Sometimes I take full lead on that, but in a lot of situations, he'll still be in the meetings. And then we're slowly transitioning the other households. We had another advisor that I had hired prior to Nick that unfortunately didn't work out. And that makes things a little bit tricky because the idea of transitioning a client to another advisor and then taking them back and then transitioning, I feel like with a lot of those, it's not really a comfortable transition. So I'm holding on to those, but we are working towards getting Nick to be lead on more of the households.
Well, good. Now, jumping back to the team, as we brought on those new members, um, and I think I want to separate them out because the process was a bit different. Hiring a service person as opposed to hiring that other advisor and getting him up and running. So let's talk service because with a lot of offices, especially initially, as you start to really see that growth, it is the paperwork, the client service, and all of that has to get addressed. And most advisors um, can't and or don't want to be super involved in that. They want to go out and get the next best thing. So for your service team, what processes did you use to find them and find the right person, get them hired, get them up and running?
Yeah, we've used different processes. Laura Ray, she was one of the head PTA people at my kid's school. My wife knew her and said, "Wow, this person would be incredible. You should see if she's looking for a job." So that's how we found her. We've used headhunters. I feel like it's worth it. It costs a lot of money, but I feel like it's worth it. That's how I found Nick. And the headhunter that found Nick interviewed 27 people, and then had three of them he sent to me to interview. Kirsten, who's our COO, we also found through that same headhunter. She has a lot of great experience. On the service side, there's two ways to do it. One way to do it is you find people and you train them from the ground up. And depending what your practice looks like, that may not be that big of a deal. But we're independent. We deal with a lot of different custodians. We don't do a lot in the insurance space, but we do a little bit. I use my advisory license as well as my securities license. So it's not like there's just, one entity we're dealing with. It's somewhat complicated. As I mentioned earlier, my mom started working with me early on and I trained her from the ground up, and that was fine, but it took years. And I did find when we would bring other people on, the learning curve was tough. It takes a while to really get it to work. So my preference generally now is to hire people that have some industry experience. Kirsten, who's our COO, not only does she know how to do all the paperwork and everything, but she's also licensed. So she understands the why behind it. And sometimes I think there's value in understanding the why behind it. Now, of course, early on when you're growing, you might not be able to afford, those people with that background. But if you can get to a spot where you can find people that have some experience, I think that's positive.
Absolutely. And I think the experience in the industry always adds, it's a big bonus. If you can find someone that brings that in. To me, going through the hiring process, and whether you're going through headhunters, whether you're using, I mean, we've got a ton of material to post ads online, and go that route. We have our hiring service. If you don't have a good headhunter in your area, no matter what you're doing, there are certain traits that you want in these people that you're going to bring onto your team. The Some of them you can't train it. They have to just have that and naturally bring it into your team. As you look at your team, and you've mentioned a couple of them as you've been describing them, what are some of the traits that and strengths that the people on your team currently bring to the table?
Absolutely. And of course, it's different depending on the role. Starting off with like the advisor, Nick. Yeah, I used to work for a guy right out of college for a little while named John Bledsoe, and he had explained to me one time that there's a big difference between being liked and being well liked. Some people are just well liked. I mean, Nick will bring on clients. He's in his early 30s, and they'll joke to me about how they want to adopt them, and then they'll refer them pretty quickly. So a lot of that's just kind of personality, and either people have it or they don't.
Mhm.
As far as the rest of the team, people need to have a good phone voice. That's pretty easy to figure out. You just have some phone conversations with them, and you can train people to be better on the phone. But it's a lot easier if they just naturally have a good phone voice, a good smile. If, of course, on the service stuff, they need to be detail oriented.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of value, and I've never even done this with my team, but like the book Strength Finders that kind of talks about, what are the things you can do all day. And then at the end of the day, feel like you have more energy than when you started because it's stuff you actually enjoy doing. For me, that's meeting face to face with clients and prospects. That just kind of ramps me up. For other people, it's knocking out paperwork, and it's just, a matter of finding people that's what they're into.
Oh, absolutely. And it becomes should become a big piece of the hiring process. And the questions that you ask, all of that should be geared towards, is this person a fit, not just for the team, but for the position that I'm going to ask them to fulfill? Do they have the traits and the strengths for that position? Because if they don't, even if you have all the processes in place, it's not going to go well. You're going to have to do some babysitting, and I know we've had some discussions in the past, with team members, and having to do that babysitting and keep things moving forward, and nobody wants to do that. So
The hiring toolkit that you guys have is good, and the hiring toolkit gives you some tests that you can give prospective employees or prospective hires. And some of looks really goofy if you look at it at first, and you're like, this is a waste of time. Everybody knows how to proofread a letter, or has basic math skills, but the reality of it is some people don't. And we have made a couple of hires over the years that didn't work out. What's kind of interesting though is, in general, on the hires that didn't work out, there's still positive things that came from them being a part of the firm. There are some things I can look back on where maybe changes were made, that are positive changes that I don't think would have happened if that person hadn't come into the firm, even though they weren't really the right fit longer term.
yeah, I don't think anyone generally brings on someone that's a horrible fit. It's usually, what I've seen, at least with advisors, is, I need someone right now. This person checks off, 6 of the boxes I need out of 10.
Mhm.
I'll run with it. So they can always bring a positive impact, even if they're not necessarily the right person that you should have in that position. So, there are a couple questions in here, related to the team that I want to touch on quickly, but then, I want to jump into the processes. Where the new business has come from, and how you're dealing with bringing all that in. So, a couple team related questions. First, is your service team licensed, or is anyone on the service team currently licensed?
Only one person. It's the Kirsten, who's the COO, but does service work also. Nick, that other advisor I was referring to, at his last firm, they would have people take their securities exam, and he said the owner didn't really care if they passed or not. They just wanted them to take it to get some industry knowledge. So I think if we did hire somebody in the future that did not have a license or any experience, maybe they were like a legal secretary or somebody we thought had really the right skill set. I think I would probably have them take their securities license, and I'd probably tell them up front it's okay if they don't pass.
And then one other one. What benefits do you offer your team?
Well, they get to hang out with me.
The best benefit.
Benefit. We don't do health insurance. I've looked at doing that before. If somebody doesn't have health insurance and that's important to them, we'll tell them that we'll help them figure it out. I have my insurance license, but I've never sold a health insurance policy. And of course, now you generally use the exchange anyways. But we don't really, fortunately, have a need for it right now. It seems like most of the people here have spouses that work for larger companies. As far as benefits, we have a very competitive compensation structure. There's bonuses, but also the salaries that I pay are very competitive. I think they'd be a little on the high side for the industry, but I think it's worth it. One of the things I've been told over the years is that generally 20% of your revenue should go to staffing, and our number runs a little bit closer to 30%. But we also don't spend as much money on marketing as other places. We're not out there doing dinner seminars and things like that and spending money that way.
Absolutely. And we do, and I'll say, I know there's a couple other questions coming in with this. Bill Good Marketing has a lot of documentation on compensation, on hiring, on bringing people in, and finding the good compensation points for your area. Because obviously what someone's going to get paid here in Utah isn't going to attract the same level of people in like New York City, and things like that. So we do have those processes that we can get into. If you have those types of questions, please reach out, let us know. We can definitely dig into team building. We've got a ton of documentation on it, and we can kind of customize it to you and what your needs are right now. Okay,
Yeah.
but I do want to move on, get to the processes portion of this, because I think there's some really cool things in here that you should know, because as you get to this level of growth, when you're bringing in this many new households throughout each year, and it's that regular, consistent flow, processes are not just important, they're vital. If you don't have them, you will have things fall through the cracks. You will lose clients or potential clients because of not following up, missing too many things. I've had advisors that I've dealt with in the past that have lost clients because we had to call and ask them for information 2 or 3 times to get that initial paperwork filled out, and that was enough to scare them away. Okay, so I do want to get to the processes. If there's time at the end, I'll come back and get a couple more of these team questions. Okay. With this, as we get into the process for onboarding and handling all the new business that comes in, how much of that would you say comes from referrals from your existing clients?
Really, all of it. It either comes from centers of influence or existing clients. Most of it's coming from existing clients. And one of the things that you're taught is you need to find these different ways of getting a lot of referral flow. And I've found that it's more random. Like you'll get one here, one there, but it adds up. It's not one source. Like we have an accounting firm, we might get maybe 3 clients a year from. Another accounting firm might give us 2. You have an estate attorney, we might get 1 a year from. Of course, the estate attorneys aren't great at referring generally because they work with so many different advisors, but we'll get one there. But most of it's coming from referrals from existing clients.
Absolutely. And obviously we're adding some assets from existing clients bringing more money in as they get it, or as they determine that why have money anywhere else? It should all be with Rob. Let's just bring it in.
Yeah, I would say probably 60% of it is new business and 40% is existing relationships.
Mhm.
I know, like with Bill Good, one of the common things to do is the Find the Money campaign and figure out what money have people been hiding from you. And I would argue I'm the exception, that in general, people don't hide money from me. I know where it all is. I've only had a few times that I find out about stuff later. So the process we utilize, I feel like we do a pretty good job of at least figuring out where everything is. And you're right, certainly there are times there are pockets of money other places, and then just over time you're able to pick up those monies. One example of that, especially, would be when people pass away. Maybe their parents pass away, but they had a great relationship with the advisor. The parents did, and they feel like they should leave that money there for a while. Sometimes it can take a little while to peel that money away.
Oh, definitely. And I think a lot of what has made you successful with existing clients and getting all that money is your onboarding process as you go through that. So I want to break down, because of the information that you find out from people as you meet with them, as you fill out the questionnaire, as they go through the whole onboarding process. You know where everything is, and you're essentially doing the find the money as onboarding, so that you can find out different things and find out where everything is, which obviously any advisor wants to do, because we can't make the best decision for our clients if we don't know everything about our clients. Okay. So I want to dive into a couple of the steps included in this. And this onboarding checklist starts at the very beginning, when that initial contact is made, or when you guys receive that referral. That triggers this whole checklist to start. And I like that right from the beginning, an advisor is reaching out. So tell me a bit about that first, kind of the first couple interactions that you have with these new prospects and new referrals coming in.
And generally, it's a phone call and an explanation that really the first step is an introduction meeting, either in person or virtually, where we explain the process and get to learn a little bit more about them, and then figure out if it's a good fit. And then if it is, the next step is the fact finding. And I feel like when you word it that way, it's a little disarming, because they don't feel like they're committing to anything. They just feel like they're getting to learn a little bit more. And another thing about being disarming, like within the questionnaire, at one point that you're going to get to later, we used to ask for people's social security numbers in the questionnaire, and I found there were some situations where people were hesitant to give us data because they were kind of turned off by that. They'll give you their tax returns, though, that have the social security numbers on them. So kind of do it that way. But yeah, initially just some type of short conversation, and then set up either a face-to-face or a virtual, and we have kind of a PowerPoint presentation we go through. But more importantly, on the front end, try to figure out really what their big financial concerns are, where they're coming from, and make sure that we design the introduction talk around what their concerns are and the different things that they want to address.
And as you go through these questionnaires with people, especially now, how often do you run across people that don't want to give you the information that you're asking for?
I would say never. I mean, there occasionally you might run into people that they want to hear the full intro talk or go over that, but it's pretty rare. I mean, if they're coming to us, and that's one of the things that's frustrating, early on in your career, you see 10 people and you might get 2 or 3 of them as clients. Now you see 10 people and you get 9 of them as clients. And you're so some of that's because you're better at what you do, but a lot of it's just because the referrals themselves are so much warmer.
Yeah, and I think along with that, just having the process and allows you and your whole team to just run. And there's really, in essence, there's no thought about it. It's just, this is what happens. And it's so smooth that's seen by those referrals by potential clients and by clients, of course. But that in and of itself is kind of disarming. Shields go down because it shows confidence and experience. That it's just a smooth transaction from beginning to end. So obviously you have all the questions on the questionnaire that you go through that finds out, who they are, their kids, their family, their financial situation. What are some of the questions that aren't on the questionnaire that you found really help out in this process?
The family questions, learning about their parents. We build a full family tree, their parents, kids, grandkids. Are there people that they feel like at some point in their life they might have to help out financially? Or are there expected inheritances that may come into play at some point? And sometimes you'll get people asking, why are you asking that question, which is, easy enough to answer and address. But we build a wish list, bucket list for people where it's almost like a vision board. Somebody tells us they want to go to Tahiti and they want to see the Great Wall of China, and they want to retire on a certain date. There's going to be a picture of Tahiti and a picture of the Great Wall of China, and then there's going to be a bullet point on there for if they say they want to retire when they're 62, we actually figure out what is that exact date and then put that on there. But that's something that we've found that people like. And then it's when we do our review meetings, we always update those documents and we save PDFs of them in their vault and e-money. And it's kind of fun sometimes to go look at what people wanted, 5 and 10 years ago. That's another good thing with just managing client relationships. We save a PDF of the balance sheet after the reviews. And occasionally, which we haven't had extended down market in quite some time, but it's going to happen again eventually. But when you get people that they give you the feedback, hey, I don't feel like we're really making any progress here. And then you show them their balance sheet from 3 years ago or 5 years ago. In my experience, they're always shocked at how much, things actually have gone up.
Oh, definitely. And I love that a lot of the questions and techniques that you're going into kind of off that questionnaire, they're all relationship based. Let's find out about the family, about the dreams, the goals. I mean, yes, obviously finances and the investments and everything's going to play a part in getting that, but people love talking about it. I think everyone has had that conversation with a grandma, and you've asked about the grandkids. 45 minutes later, she's still going on, and you're best friends forever. Okay. And that's what it takes. And, when you go in, a lot of people when it comes to finances, their shield is up to some level when they come in to meet with a new advisor. And, having that profile that you're building out for them is very disarming. Shields can go down. You're there for them, not their money. Okay. The money is what you'll use to help them get to those goals and get things going, but you're there to create that relationship. And I love that aspect. So now as you're going through, obviously we've got the meetings. A couple things I want to point out on this onboarding checklist as you go through is that you've included the database portions of this, of going in and updating, and not just saying, update the database, but all the different pieces of information that should be updated. And you've got your red tail updates. As we go a little further down this checklist, you can see the e-money updates, more red tail updates as the further they go through the process. All the stuff that needs to be done to make sure you have the information in the database to pull off your service model and everything else down the road. I feel like a lot of offices don't include that in their checklist. It kind of gets taken for granted that, yeah, that'll happen. So what led to you adding that to this onboarding checklist?
Mistakes. it not happening and then there being issues later. The example you gave earlier, we've never lost a client because of that, but there's definitely been frustration on where's this person's social security number or whatever it may be. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's important. And then the other thing, even with e-money, there was a time where anytime anything would change, the service assistants would make sure e-money was updated. There was a time where the volume got so high that the data in e-money was not necessarily being updated. So then I'm doing a review meeting with people, and then some of the data is not accurate. And we have a system in place now that prior to review meetings, somebody goes in and audits all that to make sure it's done properly. But there's checklists to make sure everything is updated.
Yeah, and I love, I mean, you kind of brought it up. There's the no pain, all growth, uh, you know, isn't completely accurate, but hey, no pain, no gain. Um, the pain is a good thing because you've learned from it, and that's the big key that I think is you've seen things that are a little off. They're causing the extra steps later on or anything like that. You've added these checklists. You've put in the processes to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks again. We don't want to repeat mistakes over and over again and just hope it fixes itself. You've taken the steps to fix it so that it doesn't happen again if people are following their job. And then you're hiring the right people that do the job.
Absolutely.
We did have a quick question come in, and I'll go back up a little bit. The further clarification on the two advisor meetings on here, the presents questionnaire and then going over the questionnaire meetings, kind of what the time difference is for those meetings.
Yeah, so the first meeting's an intro meeting. The second meeting is the fact finding meeting. Sometimes that can be done at the same time. If somebody's a referral and they are just ready to go, we'll get them the questionnaire before the meeting. There's some of the stuff we cover in the intro that's not just a sales pitch to get them to do the questionnaire. There's some things from like a philosophy perspective that I want to make sure that they understand. And in fact, if we do an intro meeting with one spouse and we don't meet the other spouse until we're doing the fact finding, there's going to be a shorter version of that intro meeting done there. So you have the intro meeting, the questionnaire meeting, the investing 101 meeting. Same thing. You could do the intro meeting as one, but maybe combine the questionnaire and the investing 101 meeting. We're pretty aggressive with communicating that we want the clients to really understand everything. We don't want them to do stuff because their brother really trusts us and their gut feeling says they feel like they can trust us. We want them to understand it. And we tell them we want them to be very aggressive about asking questions if they don't. And when we teach, when we do our investing 101 education, we start very, very basic. I learned early on in my career, people would sit there and nod their head up and down, and they had no idea what in the world I was talking about. So I feel like if we can do a good job of explaining it to them in a way that they understand, there's a lot of benefit to that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think on those lines, one of the letter series that we have is the questions you're afraid to ask. Has been extremely popular for that reason, is because people are afraid to ask it. They think, well, everybody knows this, but really outside the industry, hardly anybody knows the answers to those, but they should know the answers to those. So providing that education, but um, you know, in a way that they'll understand, get the industry jargon out of it, let them know what things really mean, and encourage them to ask questions. And I think that's awesome. So, um, one other thing that I wanted to make sure we touch on in this onboarding process, and again, at the end of this, we'll have the code that you can go take that survey. This will be part of the goodie bag. Okay. But I want to touch on that final step. When you've gone through all the meetings, someone has agreed to be your client. They've signed on. Everything's been done. The paperwork, the accounts are open, all of that. This last step of onboarding. Tell me a bit about this
It's really just doing a review meeting a little bit sooner. So the first review meeting we'll generally do about 30 days after they say go, because by then, hopefully all the money's transferred over. If it hasn't, sometimes we'll schedule it out a little bit further, or other times we'll still just do it. Maybe there's just one account that hasn't come over or something along those lines. That started initially because early on in my career, I was selling a fair amount of permanent life insurance. And when you do that to people, especially in their 20s and 30s, if you do it and then just say you'll talk to them in 6 months, you'll get a lot of people calling you questioning why they just did what they did. But, and we don't do a lot of that anymore. But I do feel like to give peace of mind, it's good to meet with them, do that first review, make sure they know how to get onto everything online. If they're not technology savvy, we can help them get shortcuts on their cell phones to be able to see things if they want to be able to look at their accounts that way. But just making sure they don't have any questions. Part of our process is, of course, making sure that their estate plan is updated and done properly. And for most people, there's some work on that end. So we're going to the meeting with the estate attorney and them. You were talking earlier about explaining things in a way that people can understand. Run into that a lot meeting with clients and their CPA or their estate attorney, where those professionals are using verbiage that the client has no idea what they're talking about. And being there as an advocate to kind of jump in and explain it is beneficial.
Absolutely. And I think it's such a valuable step to put in there, and especially where you have it, doing that like 30 to 45 days out. They've just been through a lot. And they're moving all their money. They're getting to know you, your team, everything. Adding this step in just gives them the ability to have even more confidence that they made the right choice. So what are some of the feedback, or what's some of the feedback that you've received from new clients as they go through this?
Through the planning process itself.
Mhm.
For people that have been through it with other people, I mean, they're thankful. Like the investment education, I find that they're thankful because they really didn't understand the stuff in the past. And there's some people that are very smart people, but they put up a wall and they really don't want to understand it. They're not interested in it. And for them, it is more of a feeling type of thing. But for the people that are a little bit more analytical or just open-minded and open to learning new things, people fear what they don't understand. And if you can help them understand things that they previously didn't, there's a lot of benefits to that. A lot of the referrals come from people we've worked with for a couple years. I think after people become a client and then you treat them really well and they realize that you're meeting with them, not necessarily trying to sell something, because you've already got everything in place and you're helping them reallocate their 401k plan, or giving them a hard time because they didn't get that umbrella policy that they really should have or whatever, and they realize that you actually care. I had a mentor early on who told me, people don't really care how much you know till they know how much you care. I don't really agree with that. I think people do want you to actually know what you're doing. But I feel like if they feel like you really know what you're doing and then they feel like you really care, that's really powerful.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and I think all of that, getting your new clients getting all of this within that first month. I mean, it puts them at ease. It sets them up for the rest of this relationship that you're going to have with them. So uh, I think going through this onboarding process, how often do you look at this and kind of reevaluate the onboarding process, and if there are any adjustments that need to be made?
It's constantly being done. I mean, when we do our team meetings, I'm always closing with what can we do better, not just to make the client experience better, but the process itself. Going from a solo and we're kind of morphing into an ensemble where we're growing from within is a very painful process. But now we're of a size that, I mean, there are meetings that happen that I'm not in where the rest of the team is working on these issues, which is really cool. There are meetings with Kirsten where she's kind of once again, the COO, meeting with Nick, the other advisor, on a weekly basis, going over what's going on with the firm, what can we do better. And I'm not even involved in those meetings, which is pretty powerful. And it's nothing that would have even been considered, 12 months ago.
Oh, definitely. And I think we are a little over time. We'll wrap up here in just over the next few minutes. We did have a couple questions come in that I wanted to address, and we'll get to the other ones. But yeah, you mentioned doing about 20 meetings a week. How much time do you spend in those meetings on average?
45 minutes. I generally try to budget an hour and a half, so that there's cushion between meetings to put out fires and be able to breathe a little bit. If there's a 20 meeting week, you generally do have some reschedules, and it's been a while since I've done it, but the average might be more like 16 or 17 as far as what you actually have. To some extent, I run the business a little bit like an airline does, where they almost overbook. Now I can get all the meetings done, but obviously if you have a meeting every hour and a half from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, you'll be in trouble. But invariably, you'll get a reschedule here and there, which will give you a little bit of time to breathe. And I have done a better job. One of the things that Bill Good is big on is coming up with a model week, where you come up with, specific time for specific tasks. So Friday mornings, for example, I like to trail run from 8 to 10 is open on Friday mornings for me to go on a run. We try to keep Mondays a little bit lighter, when possible. But it's generally try to budget an hour and a half. And that gives us a little wiggle room too. If things are really tight and we need to squeeze in a prospect or something, we can change it on the calendar just to be an hour, and then reschedule one of those other meetings by 30 minutes and then open up a new 1 hour slot.
Perfect. All right, and then a couple questions about the type of business that you do. First, do you do wealth and annuities?
Yeah, most of our business is advisory. I think we're probably at around 270 or 275 million right now, and about 250 of that is advisory. The rest of it, we do MIGAs. I think right now, with interest rates being where they are, it's attractive, especially for some of the more conservative clients. So we do some MIGAs, and we have some variable annuities on the books. Did a fair amount of them back in 2007 when those living benefits riders were real attractive, and because of the way they're paying out, they're going to continue to stay on. Haven't really done much in like the indexed annuity space, other than take over service on some of those products whenever there's still a surrender charge tied to them. But most of it's advisory. We do some alternatives too for our higher net worth clients, oil and gas deals, private equity deals. But that's, $5 million plus clients, and we might take a 500,000 or 750,000 and do, 5 or 6 sexy things, where you're getting more outside the box stuff.
Perfect. And do you provide a financial plan? And if so, what do you charge?
It's a good question. So we actually, in some situations, we charge a fee for our process, but we usually don't. And that also I find is disarming, because I know there are some clients we've gotten over the years where I feel like if we had charged them a flat upfront fee, they wouldn't have gone through the process. At the same time, I certainly understand the value where a lot of advisors argue, even if you just charge them $500 or $1,000, maybe the prospect puts more value on the advice. But the reality of it is if people go through our process, a very, very high percentage of the time, I would say over 90% of the time, they end up becoming clients. And I'll explain that to the prospects, that the reason we do this and we're going to spend all this time with you is because a very high percentage of the time people become clients. And if for whatever reason, you want to go to different direction or deal with somebody like Spencer that has better hair than me, I completely understand that.
Excellent. All right. Oh, we've got a
It's
couple.
more, I don't think, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The question there was, do we provide a financial plan? I would argue we do. Sometimes it's like a formal written, we build a formalized e-money deal for them. But I don't use e-money for a lot of the planning itself, but that's where all the data is housed. And we do real planning, meaning we actually look at their tax returns, and if we can come up with ideas, bounce it off their accountant We make sure their insurance coverages are in place. We look at the big picture and do real financial planning, not just going in there and selling a few products and kind of disguising it as financial planning.
Awesome. All right. Well, I do. There were a couple of questions that got into kind of the marketing side, and getting referrals and how that whole process works. And you know, I a lot of that is what Rob is talking about at AdvisorCon. Today is kind of more focused on the aftermath of everything that he's doing and bringing in. It's the team, the processes to handle all that growth. So he will be talking more about the processes he used to bring that growth in during AdvisorCon. So again, make sure go out there, learn more about what Rob will be speaking on, as well as everybody else at AdvisorCon, and get your tickets. It's going to be an awesome event, well worth it. I do want to bring up the goodie bag again. And there we go. So you can scan this code. You can also go to the website here. It's www.bgmtips.com/allgain. And that will bring you to a short survey. Again, just let us know what you thought about this webinar. If there are certain areas of your practice that you could use some help with, or that you'd like more information on, and you'd like to talk to us about, let us know. We're here to help you out. For anyone else that's on, I will stay on for a minute with Rob. If you have other questions, please throw those in. But I wanted to make sure that those of you that have to jump off, go scan this code, take that survey for us. We really appreciate any feedback. And I do want to have another sort of question come in. Rob, has anyone told you sound exactly like Nicolas Cage?
And my brother-in-law calls me Nick. So yeah,
Nice.
I started shaving my head when I was 30, but prior to that, I kind of had the similar hairline as. But it definitely, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say I don't have his money. I think he's been in trouble, so maybe I do.
You might at this point.
Yeah, I might actually. Yeah, who knows? But
so I do want to. There was one question that came in that I do want to address, as long as you're okay with it. Is it, how much do you pay your service people? What kind of average salary?
yeah, I would be okay. Like if people want to reach out to me directly, communicating that, but I don't want that out there. Different people inside the firm will hear that, or people that are trying to interview in the future. So
Definitely. And like I mentioned before, for those of you that asked that question, a lot of what we have in the hiring packet on Bill Good Marketing, we get into the compensation, the bonus structures, all of that kind of stuff that we can get into for you specifically. But again, if you'd like to reach out to Rob, let us know. We'll definitely get you guys connected, and you can go from there. So I do want to thank everybody for coming. Hopefully you picked up a few cool things that you can take back. Please, again, fill out that survey, get the goodie bag. That checklist, that questionnaire will be really awesome for you to use. Let us know what your feedback is, what other type of webinars and topics you'd like to get into. But again, thank you for coming. Rob, thank you so much for your time and sharing some of your processes and things with us. I really appreciate it.
yep, no problem. Thanks for the opportunity, Spencer.
Of course. All right. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and hopefully we'll be talking to you soon.